And I'm going to start the recording. Okay, so this is, sorry about my voice. This is part of why I think I'm not feeling well. So we are going to review and preview. Review Module 4 and preview Module 5. And you're just about halfway there. We've started Module 5, and that is just about halfway. So we're going to look at reminders, review of Module 4, preview of Module 5 with writing papers, APA, and best practices. Don't forget, faculty only have to be online 5 days. The last check for me is Sunday around 10 p.m. If a question comes in after that, I probably won't see it till Monday morning, and that would be after your assignment is due. So questions should be asked earlier than Sunday night. Problems or issues should be brought up earlier than Sunday night. Now, I am just about finished with the feedback for this group. I've submitted discussion for 1 feedback went out earlier today. For 2 feedback, I have just 3 more to do, and that will go out tonight. So there's a lot of feedback that is in the rubric. And so don't just look at the points, because even if you earned all the points, there may be some comments that could help you continue to earn points or some tips on earning points. It is much better to paraphrase than to quote. Quotes are when you use the exact word, you use quotation marks. Paraphrasing, you put it into your own words. You create messages that are about the same length and you have a citation. Summarizing, you also use your own words, and there's also a citation. Why is it better to paraphrase than quote? If what you do is just give me a whole bunch of quotes, somebody this module gave an answer. The entire posting was a quote that had no original writing in it at all. That does not show me that you understand concepts. It shows me that you can find quotes. So it's important to use paraphrasing and summarizing rather than quoting. Reminders. Address all requirements comprehensively. Be sure you demonstrate an understanding of course concepts by using depth and details, application and analysis, and insights. On all the rubrics, it says developed insightful conclusions. Conclusions that just report on a topic are not insightful. Use relevant sources. There were several people this week in both 4.1 and 4.2 that used blogs. Blogs are not good sources. Unless you are absolutely sure of who wrote it and what their credentials are, blogs are just somebody's opinion who wanted to share their opinion with you. They are not necessarily experts, although sometimes they do claim to be. I left this in, that shouldn't be their PowerPoint template. That's for another week. Also, sites that are selling services. A lot of people use that this week. A site selling services is not providing you with good information for your postings or for your paper. It's providing information to get you to buy what they're selling. And so it's not a reliable source. Okay, so let's look at participation. Make sure your postings are substantive. I defined that in, I think, the Module 2 announcement. You want to have details, depth, and insights. Quoting is not enough. It doesn't show me that you understand anything. Write in paragraphs and use white space. If all you have is one long paragraph, it's much harder to read, much harder to follow. Use sources. If you are writing the authors of the textbook in line saying, according to Belch and Belch, it's Belch, the word and, Belch, and the year. If you're using it in a citation, it's Belch ampersand, Belch 2016, and you add the page or paragraph number for the quote. You could also put it in the chapter if you wanted to do that. But it's important that you use both names for every citation and in the reference. Apply and analyze information over reporting it. Reporting it tells me you found it in a source, you can read it, you can regurgitate it. Applying and analyzing shows me that you can apply it to a business situation and you can analyze what it means. Develop insightful conclusions. And as I said, the definition of substantive is in the Module 2 announcements. Post early in the week. You have no idea what the end of the week is going to bring for you, and it allows you more time to work on assignments. Make sure your initial posting is by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. There are several people in this class who posted their initial posting on Sunday night. That doesn't give you any time, especially if a paper is due, and you had a group paper due this week. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to get that done if you wait till the end of the week, and gives you more time to do assignments. It's been my experience that students who post early in the week tend to do better in class. Okay, so Module 4. 4.1 was about advertising objectives using Dagmar and the communication effects model. 4.2 is about the advertising budget, share of voice, share of method, and objective and task method. Another method that was not discussed, which is the one that I always used to use, was percentage of sales. So if you look at your percentage of sales, let's say sales are $10 million, let's make it a nice round number, then you might say 1% of our sales income is going to go to marketing, and that would be $100,000, which may sound like a lot, but if you're doing a lot of marketing, $100,000 is not much at all. Would you make sure your microphone is off? I'm hearing somebody speaking in the background. Thank you. In Module 5, you're looking at creative strategy. There is just one discussion posting for Module 5. You're going to look at whether something is emotional and entertaining or rational and objective. Another way of looking at that is left brain, right brain. There are people who prefer advertising that is left brain, and people who prefer right brain. So you really need to be able to use both the emotional and entertaining and the rational objective. You're going to use 2 sample ads. I would much prefer if you include pictures rather than links to pictures. What happens is if you have a link, if I click on it, it takes me out of the SNHU website, and then I have to log back in again. And so if everybody's providing links, that takes me twice as long to look at things. So try to do pictures rather than links. Of course, if the ad you want to share is a video, then it's going to be more difficult to include it in the actual posting. And you're going to need 2 response postings this week. You have a blog due again this week. It's on 3 execution styles. You're going to pick ads, explain what style they used, determine if the appeal is rational or emotional, make sure you use sources, and engagement postings are not required on the blog. So I know some of you in the past have been doing engagement postings on the blogs, but it's not required. So the blog really does go along with the discussion question for Module 5. All right, let's look at papers. We're going to look at writing, citations, headings, references, sources, best practices, and some sample reference listings. So writing. In APA, you are not allowed to use you, your, first person, or contractions. The only time you can use it if it's in a quote. But if you're writing, you cannot use first person, you, your, or contractions. I already said paraphrase rather than quote, and that is for both papers and postings. Superlatives, all, every, never, always, are rarely true and difficult to prove. So if you say that this company has never and will never do something, how do you know what's going to happen in the future? Are you sure they never did it in the past? If you say everyone will understand, just because you provide the information doesn't mean that everyone will understand. You can say everyone will receive it, but you don't know that everyone will understand it. So be very careful using any superlatives. And I've given you 4 examples, but best and most are also superlatives. Very is overused and unnecessary in writing. If something is unique by putting very in front of it doesn't make it any more unique. If it's important, if it's very important, it's actually not any more important if you put very in front of it. It is an overused and unnecessary word. In order to is an empty phrase, use to. Due to the fact that is an empty phrase, use since. Nowadays, use today. Don't use some of those expressions that have no real meaning and they're just taking up space. Avoid generalities, like in the entire world. Everyone in the world loves Apple. I'm sorry, but there are people who don't have electricity. I don't think they love Apple. You can't speak for the whole world. That's a sweeping generality that cannot be proven. And if you tell me you have a great idea, wouldn't it be better for me to say you have a great idea? So try to avoid those adjectives that evaluate information. Check the use of apostrophe. Company's apostrophe means it's possessive, belonging to a specific company. Companies is the plural. And if it's plural possessive, you put an apostrophe after the S on companies. Avoid unnecessary phrases. When it comes to, as well as, unnecessary phrases, get rid of them. Do not end sentences with a preposition, to, in, on. This is tough. Try to do it if you see that you've done it. See if you can reword the sentence a little bit, but it's tough not to do prepositions at the end of the sentence. Rhetorical questions are totally unnecessary. You don't really need to have any rhetorical questions. Use the author, not publication, for according to. So it's not according to Fortune or Forbes. It is according to John Smith or Mary Jones. It's always according to the publication when the author is provided. Check for wordos, cliches, and redundancies. And last week, your slides from last week define each of those. Does anyone have any questions about wordos, cliches, or redundancies? Please say it out loud. Turn on your microphone because I don't have the chat box open right now.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay, then I will keep going. Citations. Use last name only and publication date in citations. So it's the author's last name. So you don't put John's, oops. So you don't put John Smith, 2016. You put Smith, comma, 2016. If there is no publication date, you use N period, D period, which means no publication date. You don't use not available, and you do not use the download date. So if there's no date and you downloaded it today, you don't put the publication date as January 20th, 2019. You only use the publication date. It is better if you can find articles with a publication date. The reason for that is, and Small Business Chronicle lately has been much better at providing dates, but the article could be 20 years old and you don't know it when they don't provide the date. So it's much better if you can find articles with the date.
Audrey?
Yes.
What if it's a company website? Like this week we had citing Wendy's corporate website. Do we use the copyright date as our date, or do we use no date?
Use the copyright date. It's usually at the bottom of the page.
Okay.
If you don't see the copyright date on the website, use N period, D period. But I've been finding that most of the time these days, companies are putting it, but you have to go find it. It's usually at the bottom of the first page.
Okay.
It will tell you the last time it was updated. Add page paragraph number to citations for quotes. And as I said, you can also put chapters. Use both names every time for the two authors. It's Belch and Belch every time you use it. It's not Belch 2016. It's Belch and Belch. If you have 3 or more authors, the first time you cite it, you have to include all the authors. The next time you cite it, you can use et al, E-T-A-L period. Use the first author's last name, then et, E-T-A-L period, comma, date. Et al means and others. Use a citation for any information that is new to you. If it's something you read in researching the topic, if it's something paraphrased or summarized, you have to use a citation. If you didn't write it, you must cite it. If you didn't know it before you read something, you must cite it. It is much better to oversight than to undercite, which means that you don't include it, and then you could be open to plagiarism. So much better to cite every paragraph, or every sentence. Not great, but better than not citing it at all. The other thing you can do is start a paragraph with, according to Belch and Belch, give you all the information, and then at the end, put a citation of Belch and Belch. That's another way of getting around having to put a citation at the end of every sentence. Headings. You want to use at least 3 main centered headings. The first heading you want to use is the introduction, but for some reason introduction is not allowed in APA, so I suggest using the title of the paper. Make each content topic a heading. That does 2 things for you. It allows you to outline the paper, and it also helps to ensure that you've covered everything you need to cover. And include a summary and or a conclusion at the end of every paper. When you hand in the final paper, what you'll be doing is combining all of the papers, and you're going to use just one summary or conclusion. Develop a 3 to 5 word heading based on the topic. Don't use the directions as a heading. Don't use a question as a heading. And capitalize all main words in the heading. So, for instance, use at least 3 main headings. Use should be capitalized, least should be capitalized. Do not use level 3 headings until you've used level 2. It's the same thing, do not use level 2 unless you've already used level 3. All right, so your milestone 6 paper, or module 6, milestone 3. You do not have a paper this week, but I would suggest, since you only have 1 discussion question and a blog this week, that you get started on the next milestone paper. It's on segmentation, targeting and positioning, demographics, psychographics, and geographics. Does everybody know the difference between demographics and psychographics? Can someone give me an example of a demographic?
A demographic would be an age group. 18
yes,
to
age
34.
could be definitely a demographic. What might be a psychographic of an age group? Think about what age group you're in, or perhaps your parents are in, and what might be a psychographic for age as a demographic. All right, I'll use my age group as an example. I am an aging baby boomer, so a psychographic is not wanting to look old, not wanting to look my age. And of course, I'm sure you know what geographics are. That's the geography. You're going to look at market segments. You're going to develop a positioning map, and you're going to use a worksheet. Here's the path to the worksheet. You go into the learning modules. You go into table of contents. You click on assignment, guidelines, and rubric, and find final project, segmentation, process, and worksheet. That's how you can find the worksheet for module 6. All right, so I took a shot at how I would do the headings if this was me doing the paper, okay? So my first heading would be veggies. I would give a little bit of an overview of veggies. Then I would look at the market characteristics of the marketplace that veggies is in. Then I would look at internal communication, the demographics, psychographics, and geographics. Then I would look at the market profile, the segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Notice in the margin are my level 2 headings. The centered headings are my main or level 1 headings. And then I would have a summary, I'd have references, and I would put the positioning map in an appendix. And that would be probably the only appendix I might have. Now I can't remember if you're supposed to use samples. If you are supposed to use samples, you might also put those in the appendix. In that case, you'd label appendix A, B, C, whatever. This is what a product positioning map looks like. So in this particular product positioning map, the variables are quality and price. So if I look at the map, low quality, low price, competitor's product. So you might have somebody down there. If I look at low quality but high price, I might have some people in that quadrant. If I look at high quality, high price, I might have only one. If I look at high quality, low price, that's where our product is. Now, the thing about a positioning map is it's from your own perspective. The other thing about a positioning map is what's critical are what you consider to be the parameters, and in this case, quality and price. That works for veggies if you wanted to do that. Now, sometimes I use soap in a positioning map, and I use creamy and deodorant. So in the lower left-hand corner is a soap that has no cream in it and no deodorant. And the example I often use is Ivory soap. If I look at the next, if I have a low price, low deodorant, but high cream, I would use something like Dove or Oil of Olay. If I were looking at high cream and high deodorant, I actually can't think of anything that fits in that category. If I look at high cream and low deodorant, I can find things there. So what the positioning map tells you is what markets you ought to be going into. However, I cannot think of anyone who has gone into soap category with a lot of cream and a lot of deodorant. I think the reason for that might be nobody wants it. So just because there's nobody in that position doesn't mean that that's the best place for you to go. That's where you would need to do some market research. So for veggies, you can use price, you can use quality, you can use any kinds of parameters that you think work and develop a positioning map. And I would compare them to places like Panera and Chipotle and Au Bon Pain, as well as Burger King, McDonald's, KFC. So, you make a comparison between what you're offering and what the others are offering. Any questions on a positioning map? Okay, doing research. Use the Shapiro library, use advanced search to refine the topic. I did go over this last week, so if you have the slides from last week or want to listen to the recording again, it goes through how to use the library. Use business journal articles, and you can use, this is an acceptable use of a website, and this would be businessweek.com, fastcompany.com, forbes.com, fortune.com, inc.com, wallstreetjournal.com, and HBR is .org, and that's the Harvard Business Review. Do not use Google or any search engine. My guess is that most of the people who this week used sales sites or blogs went to Google to research, and those are the things that tend to come up first on Google, and they are not good sources. Avoid the blogs, avoid websites selling services, and definitely avoid those purchase paper sites, because that could really get you into trouble. Focus on finding credible and reliable research, which is often from business journals. It can also be from books, but be really careful Googling or any other search engine a topic, because that's going to get you into places you don't want to be for research. Make sure in your writing papers that your citations and references match. If you start a reference with the author's name, make sure your citation doesn't use the magazine. They have to match. If you list a source as a reference, it has to be cited in the paper. It cannot be listed as a reference if it's not cited. When I was going through my MBA program, we did not use APA format. And if I used a book to hold up my desk, I put it on my reference page. You can't do that in APA. You've got to make sure the references are cited. Use the publication date, not the download date. The titles of books and journals is in italics. If you are using a journal that you found in the library, you do not use the words volume, issue, and pages, and you list the references alphabetically, but do not change the order of the authors. That has meaning. So if your author is green and black, you don't make your authors black and green. When you're listing alphabetically, it's whatever the first word is in the reference. Google is a good starting point, but it better not be your ending point, because that's where people get into trouble. Avoid website selling services. If it says what we offer on the login page or says our services, don't use it. Oftentimes, when you download the URL, it says a blog right in it. So if you see that, don't use it. The cheat sites are awful. They offer you papers, they offer you all kinds of things, and you're not going to do well with a cheat site. And all your papers go through plagiarism checker. I get a report before I download any paper. Do not use the cheat sites. Dictionaries and encyclopedias are great for high schoolers. They're not great for people working on their masters. And be really careful of those purchase paper sites. They can get you into a lot of trouble. Even the ones that say, we guarantee that you will not get caught, don't do it. Best practices. This is again for both the papers and for your postings. Go beyond reporting on a topic, analyze and apply information. Demonstrate that you understand the topic below the surface, not just what's above the surface. I'm sure you've all heard the iceberg analogy where there's just a little bit above the surface and then most of the information is below the surface. So go deeper. Use appropriate sources to support key points, and whatever you do, make sure you read it out loud before you send it. Whoever in your group is the person who's responsible for getting the paper to me, make sure it's read aloud, because you're going to pick up on stuff you didn't pick up on any other way. 4C filter, I gave you this before. Make sure your paper is clear, that I can follow the thoughts and it's well organized. Make sure it's concise. You make the point without unnecessary words and phrases. It's comprehensive, it addresses all requirements, and it's cogent based on evidence or sources. All right, so I told you I would share with you a reference page, what it might look like. And I've put these into categories, but you don't list references by categories, you list them all alphabetically. So the first one is a website with no author, no publication date. So it's Apple, N period, D period. It's about inclusion and diversity, and it's retrieved from apple.com. A website that has an author on a date. I have no idea how to pronounce this name. You have the author, last name, first initial, the year, the title, Apple Corporate Social Responsibility. It's from Research Methodology, and it was retrieved from, and there you will see my URL. If there was a blog somewhere in the URL, it probably says blog. An article from a journal, last name of the author, publication date, best leaders are great teachers, Harvard Business Review. And this is where I said earlier, you don't use the words volume, issue, or pages. The volume is in italics. The issue number is in parentheses. Then you have a comma and the page numbers, all inclusive. Textbook, Kinnicky and Williams. There's the title, 7th edition. And you have the place of publication and the publisher. Article from a journal website. You have the author, the date, the title of the article, the title of the journal, Harvard Business Review, retrieved from. and a book. The last name, the date, the title of the book, and again, you've got the place of publication and the publisher. Any questions about the reference page? Okay. Reminders, make sure you read all of my postings. I send out a weekly announcement on Monday morning usually. I also send you emails during the week, and I am amazed how many questions I get that were covered in the announcement or the email, which tells me people are not really reading that information. Understand how and why points were lost. That means reviewing your feedback, not just your points. Now, this is the good news for this class. There are still 800 points, or 80% of your grade hasn't been earned yet. So if you're not happy with where you are right now, there's plenty of time to catch up, but start doing things the right way and try to earn more points. 80% is a lot in week 5. That's because you don't have a grade on any of the milestone papers that you're doing, and it's worth 600 points in the final week. Ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. So if you don't understand something, please ask for help. Sometimes questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. So don't agonize, ask. And I think that's it. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Okay, look, Brittany, hi. Was that you with the background noise? And, okay, so.
Yeah, sorry, it was me.
There's 2 Brittany's in this class. Which Brittany are you?
Crookshank.
Okay, so anyone have any questions about anything that I've said tonight or anything that I didn't cover that you want to know something about?
I just have a comment.
Okay.
Sorry, my phone was ringing. I sometimes miss the emails because I get a lot of emails. So I don't know if there's just a way to add it to the announcement that an email has gone out, maybe.
Okay, so rather than sending emails, put everything in announcements?
It's easier for me. I don't know if it's easier for other people, but I have like 5 email accounts that come into me, and everything gets lost.
I get it. I have 6 email accounts.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly willing to do that if that also makes sense to everyone else.
I mean, since there's only 2 of us on the call tonight.
But you 2 are the only ones who get a vote.
What's your vote, Brittany?
I agree, because sometimes I have a lot of email accounts that I manage too, and it's just easier for me to like look at one place rather than.
All right, so anything that from now on that goes out to everyone, I'll do in announcements. However, if I send anything out that also has to go to your advisor, I have to do it in email.
Makes sense.
Okay?
Agree.
Anything going out to the whole class, I will do as an announcement moving forward.
Sounds good. Thank you, Audrey.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Not for me.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, then we will end this session and